This conference will now be recorded.
Otherwise known as Tibble, TBBL. So can everyone hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm going to ask everybody except for Jane to please mute yourselves while she presents. Thank you.
Good. Thanks. All righty, let's see. I'm going to share my slides here. There we go. Okay. So today I'm going to provide an overview of services for you, so you can learn how we operate and how we serve our patrons and how we serve institutions like public libraries. So I'll explain how an individual applies for service and how institutions can apply, and then the different service options available to patrons. So as Erica said, as we go along, just make sure to put your questions in the chat and we'll have time at the end to go through those. And then I will also send Erica my slides and links to resources. So if you, and my contact information. So if you have questions later, feel free to reach out at any time. Okay, there we go. All right, so just to give you a little background about Tibble. Tibble is a division of the New York State Library in Albany, New York, and that's where our collections are housed and our library offices are located. Tibble is also a regional library within a nationwide program coordinated by the Library of Congress's National Library Service for the Blind and Print Disabled, otherwise known as NLS. Through a partnership with NLS, Tibble circulates playback equipment, and NLS produced Braille and audiobooks and magazines to thousands of patrons. There are over 50 network libraries in the US, at least one in every state, and New York State happens to have 2. So there's our library in Albany, and then the Andrew High Skill Library in New York City. So our library in Albany serves eligible residents living in the 55 counties of upstate New York, which includes Westchester County and North. And then the Andrew High Skill Library serves residents living in New York City and Long Island. So Tibble is a free lending library. We lend audio and Braille materials. We serve residents in our service area who have a visual impairment, a physical disability, or a reading disability. So if an individual has trouble reading standard print, I would encourage them to apply to receive library services. Tibble serves over 14,000 patrons of all ages, very young children through school age, college, and adults. Our service is a lifelong membership, and it's also transferable to another library within our network. So if you have a patron that's moving out of our service area, we can help connect them to another Talking Book library within that NLS network. We check out about 1,000 digital books each day, and then about 300 Braille titles each week. And then we check in about that same amount. The majority of our patrons receive their books delivered through the US mail, and others choose to download their books through our free downloading service, and some do a combination of the two. Tibble serves institutions that serve our patrons or potential patrons. So an institution could include a library, it could be a public or private school, and health facilities as well. So maybe a hospital or a nursing home could become a member. And we serve about 2,000 institutions. So who qualifies for service? So to become a Tibble member, a library patron would have to qualify and then apply. So an individual qualifies if they are unable to read standard print due to a temporary or a permanent visual or physical limitation. So if an individual is legally blind, they would qualify for service. If an individual has a visual impairment where reading standard print is difficult despite corrective lenses, or maybe their eyes fatigue over time, they would qualify for service. And if an individual has a physical limitation where it's difficult to hold a book or hold a book for a long period of time and manipulate the pages, they would qualify. And if an individual cannot read standard print due to a reading disability, such as dyslexia or severe autism, then they may qualify as well. For an individual who has a reading disability, part of the application process does require that the individual have their application signed by a medical doctor. The National Library Service does realize that this could be a barrier for some individuals, so they're working to change the procedures, but we may not see a change until later in 2021, but that would be an exciting change. And then, of course, institutions qualify for service as well. So if an institution, oh wait, sorry, I'm on the wrong slide. Individuals. So if an individual qualifies for service, they can apply to receive their own account and receive books at home. And an eligible individual can use our library application to apply for service, and the application just asks for the individual's name, their contact information, an alternate contact in case we cannot get a hold of the patron, and their reason for eligibility. It also asks for subject preferences, so what kinds of books the individual enjoys reading and the kinds of books they do not want to receive. And it asks for the format that the individual prefers to read, whether that's audio or Braille or both. So when that portion of the application is all set, then the application does need to be signed by a competent authority. So that just means somebody has to sign off on the application to attest to the fact that the individual does qualify for service. And anyone listed here is considered a competent authority. So you'll see librarians and library staff are here on this list. And again, the only time an individual does need a medical doctor to sign off is when they qualify due to a reading disability, which hopefully in the next year will change. So institutions may apply for service as well. If an organization assists individuals who are eligible for our service, then they can qualify. And they can apply using our library application, specifically for institutions. Institutional membership helps libraries to support eligible individuals in your community who could benefit from audio and Braille reading materials. Public libraries can share informational materials with their community and create displays using Tibble's resources. And they can access books and equipment so staff can become familiar with our program and help patrons. Public libraries play an important role in identifying eligible individuals and connecting them to Tibble's service. So to apply, as I said, you can use our institution application, and then it can be submitted by email, fax, or by mail. And we do ask that there is a designated contact listed. That way we know who to get in touch with, so we can reach out to see if you have any questions, and we can make sure we're sending the appropriate material. So what happens next? So when we receive an application from an applicant, we enter their information into our patron database, and then we reach out to that individual just to go over the service and answer any questions they might have. If an institution applies, then a librarian would reach out and just go over questions and make sure we're sending the appropriate material. Patrons receive a welcome packet. That's in the form of a large print mailing or as an email or both. And then we make sure we're sending the correct material to either the individual or the institution. And then we try to reinforce with our patrons that reader advisors and librarians are here to help. So if they have any questions or they're confused by anything, they can always give us a call. We are here and we respond quickly if an individual has to leave a message. So I'm just going to go over the formats and the equipment that we lend and the content we have in our collection. So our patrons can select to read materials in different formats to fit their needs. So we have Braille books and Braille magazines, as well as print Braille books for children. So print Braille books are children's books with large print text and a Braille plastic overlay accompanying the text. These are great for sharing with sighted reading buddies. We have both children and adults learning and reading Braille borrow these books, so they're a popular collection. If a patron does request Braille, the Braille books arrive in a black vinyl case with a zipper used to open and close the case. And then Braille magazines come without a case, as if you might get a catalog in the mail. Audiobooks on cartridge are very popular. We supply playback equipment if a patron is interested in receiving audiobooks and audio magazines. An audiobook on cartridge arrives in a blue plastic case, and it's actually pictured here on the right. Patrons can open the container by unsnapping 2 plastic snaps, and then inside is an audiobook on cartridge that's designed to fit naturally into the talking book player, which is pictured to the left of the audiobooks. One end of the cartridge has a finger hole, so it's easy to identify, and the other end fits into the front of the player in only one way. So the player and the cartridges are very easy to navigate, which makes them very popular. The flat side of the cartridge is actually where a flash drive is located. So essentially our cartridges are a flash drive encased in plastic with 1 or more books loaded onto the flash drive. And then the talking book player is a device that reads flash drives. If an individual wants to receive a magazine on cartridge through the mail, the magazines are designed in the same way, except that they are delivered in a burgundy plastic container instead of blue. So all of our materials ship free as free matter for the blind and handicapped. So when an individual is ready to return a book, whether they've borrowed a Braille book or the audiobooks on cartridge, they can locate the address card on the outside of the mailing case. One side reads the individual's address or the institution's address, and then the other side reads our library's address. So all they would have to do is pull the card out, flip it over, reinsert the card so it displays our address in Albany, and then they can put it through the mail for free. Patrons can also download their books and magazines through the National Library Services program called BARD, or Braille and Audio Reading Download. A patron or someone assisting a patron does need access to the internet and a valid email address to get started, but BARD provides access to every title in our collection. So there's quite an added benefit if an individual can download. Titles are available in audio and e-Braille, also known as electronic Braille or web Braille. BARD is a password protected service and requires a short online application to register. When an individual applies to our service, we share information about BARD and how to register, and we will walk them through the process if they need some help. And we'll explain the benefits to downloading if they're not sure what those are versus receiving books through the mail. Public libraries can register for a demonstration account through BARD, which provides access to 5 demonstration titles. Having access to this demo account can help staff learn how to navigate BARD and possibly help a patron. Patrons can download books and magazines through the free app called BARD Mobile, which is available for iOS and Android devices. And patrons can also download through the BARD website on a computer. So the books will not play on a computer. The downloaded files must be transferred to either a flash drive or a blank audio cartridge. But if an individual prefers to download their books this way, they can then use their talking book player to listen to the books on cartridge or USB drive. So this is helpful if there is a book available on BARD and the patron prefers to use the playback equipment over the mobile app, or maybe they only have access to a computer. and they still want to download, but they don't have a smartphone. So downloading is still available to them. Tibble wants equipment and accessories to patrons. Equipment all ships free. And if equipment malfunctions for any reason, we will replace that for free as well. We send a talking book player if a patron is interested in listening to books and magazines on cartridge or flash drive, and the player is pictured here. Public libraries can receive a player to use for training and demonstration purposes. So to give you an idea of size of the player is about 9 inches long, 6 inches wide, and weighs about 2.5 pounds. The player has a rechargeable battery and can be plugged in, which is nice if an individual wants to charge it up and then bring it from room to room or take it when they're traveling. It offers simple navigation utilizing large control buttons that are brightly colored and they contrast with the background of the player. And there are Braille letters alongside each of the control buttons as well. And there are built-in audio instructions. So when an individual receives their player, they can press any button to learn about its functionality. And we do provide large print instructions with the player, but it's nice to have the built-in audio instructions as a backup. We can provide a high volume player. This player is provided by the National Library Service, and it does require an additional application. The application asks for a medical doctor to sign off on the player, but if an individual has profound hearing loss and our traditional player is not loud enough, then they could qualify for this player. We also provide headphones if an individual needs some privacy while they're listening to their books. And you'll see on the side of the player a little green circle. That's a standard headphone jack. So if an individual does have their own set of headphones, they could use those. And we also offer breath switches. So if a patron has limited dexterity that prevents them from holding a player and navigating its buttons, we can provide a breath switch, which is an add-on to the player, and it allows the patron to manipulate the buttons using their breath. We also provide download accessories. So these are for anyone downloading from a computer or a USB drive or a blank audio cartridge. So we can supply a transfer cord or a USB adapter if needed. So as a regional library within the NLS network, NLS selects and provides our titles and we share them with patrons in our service area. So when a patron applies to become a Tibble member, they have access to thousands of fiction and nonfiction titles for all ages. We have materials for children, young adults, and adults. Patrons can select from popular subject areas like bestsellers, award winners, mysteries or adventures, all kinds of different subject areas. It would be as if a patron were browsing your public library collection, a lot of the same types of content. Patrons have access to over 70 magazine titles, including several magazines for children. Patrons receive a magazine listing when they join the library, and then we can help them facilitate the subscriptions. Patrons may request music scores and books about music from the National Library Service's extensive collection. This is not streaming music. We do get that question on occasion. Instead, these are music sheets used to play music. So they're either Braille or large print music sheets or books about how to play an instrument or books about musicians. We also have foreign language materials, including Spanish and French, and a limited number of books in other languages as well. And we do not have instructional materials like textbooks, but if a student is looking for a book for class, they will find popular titles that are used for projects, and they will certainly find recreational reading. So I'm going to share how patrons can borrow materials, our books and magazines. So many patrons receive their books through BARD. This is our downloading service. And if a patron can download, BARD offers some really impressive benefits. As I said, all of our titles are available online in audio or electronic Braille. But the additional added benefits are that there are no wait lists. Every title is simultaneous use. And there are no loan periods. So a title will not, doesn't have to be returned, but it will not expire off of the device either. New items are added regularly. And both the website for BARD and the mobile app are compatible with accessibility features such as screen readers and voiceover technology. So this slide should help you visualize how a patron might download using BARD, whether they're listening using their app or using the player. Books and magazines can be downloaded through the free BARD mobile app, which you can see here on the left. And you can see that the app's interface mimics the player in the center image, and that's intentional. So it's streamlined and simple to use. There's a start-stop, forward-backward options, and buttons to manipulate the tone and speed of a narrator's voice. It's simple to navigate, and again, as I said, it works well with built-in accessibility features on phones and tablets. But if a patron prefers to download and listen using their digital player, books can be added to a flash drive or a cartridge, and then they can be inserted into the player. So you'll see here that I have a flash drive inserted into the player, and we do provide a adapter. It's a USB adapter that allows the flash drive to sit flush to the machine instead of sticking out. And we provide transfer cords if an individual wants to transfer a book from their computer to a blank audio cartridge. So I wanted to share some information about commercial players that are compatible with BARD. These devices are designed for blind and visually impaired individuals. Tibble does not lend these, but your patrons using Tibble service might be using one or more of these devices. So I wanted to share in case it's helpful. And I think it might be, it's always a good idea to become familiar with the technology people are using. So these devices provide additional ways for individuals to access titles on BARD, particularly electronic Braille. A commercial player, such as a refreshable Braille display or a Braille note taker, allows a patron to download e-Braille files from BARD and transfer them to their device. The device allows the patron to read Braille as rounded pins rise and fall through the holes in the device to display Braille characters. The patron can then read their book or magazine line by line. So this image here is a refreshable Braille display, and you can see where the tiny rounded pins rise and fall to produce the Braille characters. Your patrons might also have handheld media players, and these players sync with BARD, but they may also play music and read other types of book files. So some people like the added functionality of these devices. Another popular way to receive books and magazines is to have them delivered through the US Postal Service. There are two ways to receive books through the mail. One is for individuals to receive their books on an automatic basis. Our computer system scans for available books based on subject preferences in a patron's account, and then available books are sent out. And then when a patron returns a book, they get another book. So patrons like this model quite a bit because they have a continuous flow of books on a variety of subjects, and they do not have to be concerned with providing us with specific titles to order. So it allows people to get a variety of reading materials. And as a patron's preferences change over time, specifically younger readers, we can edit their account to reflect their interests. The other option is to select books specifically. So patrons can contact our library with their requests. They can email, call, or we do receive requests through the mail. Or they can access our online library catalog to place requests. The books that are available will be sent out. And if a book is not available at this time, it's added to a request list. And when it becomes available, it will be sent out to that patron. Patrons receive a login to the catalog when they join the library. And public library members also receive a login to our catalog, which allows staff to learn how our catalog works and possibly help a patron navigate that part of the service. We typically lend 6 books to start for our new patrons, but this amount can change depending on the patron's interests. And if it's a younger patron, we tend to provide additional books because the books are shorter. Oops, hold on. Okay, sorry, I had a pop-up. And we're flexible with the length of time that we lend books. So typically we lend books for 30 to 60 days, but again, that depends on the length of the book. And we also want our patrons to enjoy their books. And if it takes someone a little longer to read a book, that's okay. We just want individuals to get their books and enjoy their books. So if it does take someone longer, like I said, that's fine. But if a book is just sitting there, or if someone's done reading, we do ask that they're returned promptly so others can borrow them. Okay, there we go. Patrons can often look forward to receiving their catalogs from the National Library Service, where they can learn about new recordings and publications. The Talking Book Topics and the Braille Book Review are bi-monthly catalogs that provide a small sampling of resources that we provide. This is not an all-encompassing list, but it just gives people an idea of what we have available. Patrons are subscribed to one or both of the catalogs when they join the library, depending on the format that they prefer to read. Public libraries can receive both catalogs and share them with patrons and staff so they can see what we have. The catalogs are available in large print, in audio, and Braille. And patrons can also access these catalogs through BARD, so they can download in Braille or audio. So I wanted to share some additional resources. These resources are not affiliated with Tibble, but if an individual is a Tibble member, then they would likely qualify for these services. So I wanted to just explain some of these in case you're not aware of them. First is Newsline. Newsline is a free audio news service for individuals who have difficulty reading standard print. It's created by the National Federation of the Blind. Newsline offers access to over 500 publications on both state and national newspapers and magazines. It offers job listings and TV listings and emergency alerts. And individuals can access this content by calling in and listening over the phone, or by using the Newsline app or the website, or by receiving email alerts. It also works with Alexa, and individuals could download audio files and put them on a flash drive or a cartridge and listen to them through our Talking Book player. So to register for Newsline, patrons can contact us and we can subscribe them, or they can go directly to Newsline. Bookshare is an audio and ebook collection for individuals with print disabilities. The service includes textbooks, study guides, kids' books, and bestsellers, a variety of things, specifically for students, but lifelong learners in general. The service is free to eligible students. But if an individual is not a student, they would typically pay a membership fee. But thanks to the New York Public Library, this membership fee can be waived. But an individual who is eligible for Bookshare would have to apply for a New York Public Library card, which all New York residents are eligible to apply for a library card. You can do that online. Once a patron has a New York Public Library card, they can contact Tibble for a promotional code. And this promo code can be entered when applying to Bookshare, and it enables the free service. And then as part of the registration process, Bookshare will ask new applicants for proof of disability. But if a patron is a Tibble member, then they would qualify for service. And we at Tibble can help an individual walk through that process. And I also wanted to mention WMHT's Rise Radio. It's a 24-hour radio station for blind and print disabled individuals, and it serves Eastern New York. Individuals who qualify would receive a free radio receiver, which provides listeners with access to readings of local and national newspapers and popular periodicals and books, as well as specialty programming. So many of our libraries and your patrons fall under this service area for Rise Radio. So I did want to bring that to your attention. So in closing, I just want to restate some of the ways Tibble membership can help you support and advocate for your patrons. And so if an individual does have difficulty reading standard print, we could possibly be a resource for them. Public libraries play an important role in promoting Tibble service. Individuals in your community may not be aware of the service, or they might not realize that they qualify. So a public library membership offers access to our services so staff can learn about our program and share what they've learned with their community. Public libraries can receive promotional materials and brochures to share with community members, and staff can borrow books and equipment for training and demonstration purposes. Libraries receive a login to our online library catalog where they can borrow materials, as well as register for a BARD demo account and learn about the downloading process. So if a library is interested in sharing Tibble service, it can be as simple as posting promotional materials around the library or creating a display with books and equipment. And libraries could include information alongside collections of large print books or audiobooks on CD, for example. And if you have a program centered around a population that might be interested in Tibble, information could be made present for people to pick up and read. Public libraries always have the support of Tibble. We're here to help answer any questions and help your staff and your patrons navigate our services. So we are here to help.
Thank you so much, Jane. This has been a really terrific overview of the
Oh,
program.
good.
People have already posted some questions, and I'll start with those. But
Okay.
if anybody has any other questions, feel free to unmute yourself. And if you want to turn your cameras on so we can see who's here and see each other this morning, that would be awesome. So the first question I saw was, how many patrons currently use this service?
We have about 14,000 patrons, which we serve individuals. So they have materials going to their home address, or they have a BARD account and they're downloading their own titles. But we also serve institutions such as nursing homes, or maybe like a rehab center and schools. So we actually send materials to these facilities and they distribute them to individuals at residents or individuals visiting these facilities. So the number could be a little bit fuzzy, but so in general, we estimate 14,000 based on the 2,000 institutions that we serve and the number of individuals that we have as individual members.
Fantastic. how can library patrons get access to this material?
Meaning the public
Like how can,
libraries patrons?
yes, I'm
Yep.
sorry,
Okay.
yes, public library
Okay.
patrons. Should
Yep.
libraries apply to be institutional members and then serve, or what's the best way for public libraries to help their patrons who could use this service become members?
I would say the best way is for a public library to be the one to facilitate the application process, or at least share the service with individuals, because the individual would likely want their own service because their own preferences are associated with their account, and they can get the materials delivered to their home address or wherever they would like them to be delivered. But we do have some public libraries that have small mini collections of our resources because they have patrons that like to visit their library and they like to have materials available at their library. If a library prefers to do something like that, the materials would be checked out to an institution, so the public library as an institution, and the public library would be responsible for those items. But if a public library prefers to be the one to be the connector between the patron and Tibble, that's okay too, to just introduce the service and make sure people are aware of it. We often, on the applications I've noticed, we often have individuals who learned about Tibble because of their public library, because that's their go-to place. That's where they find information. That's who has connected them to our service. So we have a variety of different ways public libraries use our service. And so we can work with everyone to decide what works best for you. We could supply equipment in case you wanted to do a training, or just have it on display in case someone's curious and they ask questions. Or you could have something more in depth where you're actually the individual letting them borrow. So we could work with you to determine what's best for you and your community.
Fabulous. Yeah, I could see a great partnership with local nursing homes or assisted care, you know, if they're not already using it. Crystal had asked, how do we, oh, I'm sorry, was somebody asking a question? Okay, how do we transfer a file from Bard to the USB drive?
Yep, so the process on, so using a computer, you would download, and you can use a Mac or a Windows computer. So you can, in Bard, you would find the download file for either, for an audio file if you're transferring to a flash drive. And the audio file is downloaded as a zipped compressed folder, and that's to save time with downloading and save space. The file folder would then be unzipped, and you can move that file onto the flash drive. And we help people figure this out and go through the steps. So it's not like just, oh yeah, here, figure it out. We sit and work with people, and so if an individual needs help, we can certainly help them. And the steps are the same. So we have individuals that, you know, they say they're not tech savvy, but then by the end they've got it down. Or if you have a Windows computer, there's an additional program called Bard Express that can be added to a computer, and you can search for items in Bard through the Bard Express interface. And when you find a book, you can download it, and it takes care of the unzipping process for you. So all you would have to do is tell that downloaded file where to go, meaning the flash drive. And then you just load the flash, or you have the flash drive loaded with books, and you can put it into the player. And what's really nice about downloading through a computer is you can add multiple books to a flash drive or a cartridge. So currently, most of our books only have one book loaded on. Downloading allows the individual to really load up on their books for depending on how large the flash drive or the cartridge is. I have the dimensions of, or the size of a cartridge, but if I find that, I'll share that. Like how many books fit.
I'm going a little bit out of order here, but somebody just asked, who supplies the flash drive?
So that's the patron. So the patron can supply a flash drive or a blank audio cartridge. The audio cartridges, some people just like the way they fit into the player. They prefer that over the flash drive, but they are available online. And the flash drive, we do not supply that, but we've found that a lot of people happen to have them, or if maybe a grandparent is our patron and we have that often, that the grandchildren or the children are downloading for the applicant. So they'll download on a flash drive, and during this pandemic, we've noticed that people were downloading and then mailing flash drives to our patrons. So it's a convenient way to download and use Bard and use the player.
Great, thanks. Someone asked, are textbooks only available through Bookshare?
There are different resources for textbooks. Learning Ally is another source. That one is a paid membership, I believe, still, but Bookshare has a really extensive collection. But also I think it's the New York State School for the Blind. I can find out the other resource, but they can help supply textbooks in large print and Braille for students. That's for K-12 students, but if I can find out that information if you would like.
That would be great. Thank you.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And then Courtney asked, how can libraries apply to be a part of Tibble?
So we have an application specifically for for institutions. It's available on our website, and I can include that in my email that I send you, Erica.
Okay.
And it's a fillable PDF, and it is fairly broad. It will ask you how many individuals do you think are in your community that have a need. You might not know, and that's okay. So what we do is, we would call you and reach out to you after you've applied just to go over the service and see how we can help. And even if you don't know if you have any individuals that could benefit currently, it's possible you do. It's just they might not frequent your library, or they might not even know the service is available. So that's why even if you aren't currently serving anybody that could use our service, it's possible that it's just because people aren't aware of the service and you really are serving those members. So having resources available just to show that it's here, you can sign up, is helpful for individuals. Or we've had individuals that contact us on behalf of someone that they know. I just spoke with a patron the other day who he's legally blind, and he wasn't sure if his friend who's visually impaired qualified for the service. So even our member wasn't sure. So it's helpful to be aware of who qualifies, and just be knowledgeable that someone might qualify and you don't know that they are aware of the service. So I think even having materials up to share the service, if someone happens to see it and they ask a question, is helpful.
Absolutely. Okay, we have a question from Rita, who asked to please explain the two online catalogs, the Tibble and Bard. Is it possible to access without being a member? And once a library becomes a member of Tibble, is the catalog available to all staff?
Yep, so the BARD catalog is our downloading service, and that's where you would be able to search for materials that you could download. And the difference is that catalog is only going to have materials that you can download, which is every title in our collection, where our online library catalog is a catalog of the items that we have available on site. So it'll tell you whether something's been checked out or if it's available on our shelves to go out. It does have download links in it, but the difference is that the BARD service shows every single title. We do not always have a physical cartridge of all the books that have been made available through download. So the National Library Service will often produce books that are only available on the BARD website. So if an individual is only receiving books through the mail, then we point them to the online library catalog so they don't get confused. And they can see that an item is available or it has to go on their request list. And it will be sent out at another time. I hope that answers that question. And for staff, when you do have to be a Tibble member to receive a login for both, but for staff, they can access the catalogs. Any staff member can, and we encourage that they do, because I think the more people that know about Tibble, the better. So staff members can create their own BARD account. It would be an institution account under your institution's name, and everyone could have their own account and they could access those demo titles. And for the catalog, you would have your own institution account specific to the library. So it would have your username and a password, and that's something that everyone could access to just get used to the catalog and see how the service works and how the checkout process works for patrons in case someone approached you with a question.
Somebody asked if BARD titles have a wait time or loan period.
Nope, those are all simultaneous use. Everyone in our collection could have, in our database, our patron database, could have the same book out at the same time, and it would be totally fine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Crystal, I see you have a longer question. Do you want to ask it directly? You can unmute yourself.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So I'm in a really small rural library, and I was kind of wondering about promotional materials. Like, first, like, do you have any PDF files explaining the service that I could download and get out right away? Or I guess my idea is that I want to add like a link and a description blurb on my website, or do like a social media post introducing my community to the service. So I was just wondering about wording or anything, like any promotional materials you could share with us. How do we get access to those?
Okay. Yeah. I can share those. We have some ready to go. We have some in PDF format, also physical format paper I could send you. And we could definitely create some sort of language for the social media and a description that could go out. I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've done before, like, is follow other library services and maybe share one of their social media posts, so I can check out your Facebook page and see what you guys have already been doing, and then I can just share it over to my group, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and if you wanted to work on something together to share out, if there's something specific you wanted to focus on, we could do that too.
Yeah, I think the key thing is finding these lost people, you know, that aren't coming into the library. But, you know, I do think there are some people in the community that are interested in visual impairment services. I had at least one person mention it to me that she wanted to advocate for that. So there could be people that don't have visual issues that want to kind of reach out to that population. So maybe social media could help, like, you know, because maybe someone knows someone kind of thing.
Yeah. I think that is a large part of just getting the word out and connecting, because it's interesting to see where people find our service. So like I said, a lot of people find out about our service through the public library, but others find out about it online, and I don't know what that means because on the application, sometimes people will say where they found out about us, and so it can be anywhere. So I think sharing it widely is the best scenario, because I sometimes think it's an underserved service or underused service. I think people just are not aware of it, and I know I didn't know about this service while I was in school. It was only later that I found out about it, and so that's why I'm so happy to speak with you guys today, just to share this out and see how, like, brainstorm ways we can share it even further and even wider.
Can I ask one more question about the qualifications? As people get older, and so my community is currently mostly retirees, I guess they're starting to have vision issues. What is it, macular degeneration or different things like that. So at what point, you know, do we determine, or how do we determine that their eligibility? Like, is it just if they're having any visual impairment whatsoever that they're qualified?
It's almost up to them to identify if they're having trouble reading, then, or if we'll talk to people that have given up on it, they've realized, well, I can't read, so I just don't. And like, that's not how it has to be. So if an individual knows that, it's, they're straining their eyes, or it's taking, like, they can't read as long as they want to anymore, those conditions would qualify for service because they can no longer read standard print and enjoy their reading experience. So if someone does have an eye condition diagnosed, certainly that qualifies too. And so we have a lot of ophthalmologists signing our applications for patrons, because if they're at the eye doctor, they'll explain what's going on. But if an individual is talking about having trouble reading, or maybe you notice that they're taking out larger print titles, or they're asking about audio, it could be something to bring up, or at least have information available if someone's curious. But yeah, I wouldn't know if someone had an eye condition or anything unless they brought it up. But that's, I think they would feel comfortable speaking to their librarian about resources that are available, or if there are ways that they can access things in larger print, for example. Like, those would be times that bringing up the service might be a good idea.
Hey, Deb, I see you have a question. Do you want to go ahead and ask it?
Sure. I am already a member of the organization at the library that I'm at, but I was wondering about having a mini collection there. So how would you go about arranging that to happen?
So you could reach out to us and we'll just help you do that. Sometimes you could select the titles that you want, or we can select a variety of titles for you. We can determine how many is a good amount, if you want Braille or if you want audio. And then sometimes, those, like, when those books are sort of played out and you want new ones, we can talk about that too. Or we could put you on an automatic basis. So if you return a book, you get a book. So we could talk about how you might want to do that, and try to get those titles out to you. And then it would just be important to know that if you lend these out, or I would imagine you'd be wanting to lend them, or if they're being used in the library, we could talk about that too. But you would be the contact for those items instead of the individual that's getting them from you. And then maybe you could use it as a way to introduce the service too, if there are people that are just testing the service out and they want to see how it works. Or if, as I said before, if someone comes to your library for other services and they also want to come to get their books, because that they should have books available to them too, then that would be a good idea to have a tiny collection for them.
Right. My main thing is I think it would get used more, because I do think it's valuable. Signed up last year, I really haven't had anyone use it, so I thought that if we had the mini collection, it would help with that.
Yeah, yep. And if an individual, if you've noticed people using it quite a bit, but they're not Tibble members, an individual should be eligible to use our service and to sign up. So if they wanted to have their own application, or excuse me, their own account, they would be able to receive books based on their own preferences, and we would be able to send items to their home directly. So yeah, I think it would be a way to share the service and get people using it.
Thank you.
I love that idea, Deb. I think that's terrific. Jen LaRock, I see you have a question. Would you like to ask it yourself? Oh, she was unmuted for a second. I'll go ahead and, are the titles you have in large print larger than what many of us already have? Standard large print.
We only have the print Braille collection that's large print, and the text is considered large print, but I'm not sure if it would be larger than normal large print. I don't think so. I think it's just considered standard large print. But those are the only books that we have in large print, the print Braille collection.
Great. Somebody asked, do more patrons use audio or Braille if a library did have a rotating collection?
We have most of our collection, or most of our circulation is audio. I don't know the percentages, I should find that out, but we don't have as many people borrowing Braille, which we have an extensive Braille collection, and then of course on Bard, eBraille is available to individuals if they have a device that allows you to download eBraille. But definitely audio is our main service.
Great. Well, Jane, I cannot thank you enough. This was really terrific and super helpful. And I hope we see a big surge in usage of Tibble, because it's such a fantastic thing that we have available to us. Thank you, everybody, for attending. I did record this, and I will, once I get the information from Jane, I'll share that with you. And I'll also share a link to the recording in case anybody wants to refresh or maybe miss something or whatever it is. So I hope everybody has a fabulous day. Thank you so much for joining us, and please let your patrons and your community know about Tibble, because it's a tremendous resource.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate being able to explain Tibble today.